With 15 mainline games and a 16th on the horizon, entering the Final Fantasy series can seem daunting. A common question that comes up is, where to start? What should my first Final Fantasy be? Most members in this community would suggest Final Fantasy IV, 10, or 14. I do agree with this sentiment, but I personally believe that we can make some leeway for other games in the mainline series. So allow me to give my answer to the question, what should your first Final Fantasy be? Final Fantasy I is a simple game with a simple premise and a simple story. 4 silent protagonists known as the Warriors of Light who travel the world and slay evil foes before them. Sounds generic by today's standards, but keep in mind that this was a game released back in 1987. I recommend Final Fantasy I to those who want to experience the origins of a large franchise, those who enjoy simplicity, and even those who enjoy Dungeons and Dragons. There is no denying that Final Fantasy took incredible inspiration from the popular tabletop RPG. I recommend watching this video if you need further convincing. Link in the description. Final Fantasy I has had a lot of ports and remakes over the years, with the most recent versions being the Pixel Remaster on Steam and mobile devices. If you are not a PC or mobile user, then you may want to hunt down a copy for the Game Boy Advance, PlayStation 1, or the PlayStation Portable. Whereas Final Fantasy I is about the world and the places you visit, Final Fantasy IV is a story that's mainly focused on its characters. Every character has a personality and motivation. Final Fantasy IV is about a knight who goes on a redemption quest to atone for his sins. May sound cliche, but I am giving the non-spoiler version. You should try Final Fantasy IV if you enjoy narrative-focused RPGs, if you have any appreciation for the Super Nintendo era of games, because a lot of those games are good, or if you're looking for a game with plenty of accessibility. Final Fantasy IV has probably the most ports and remakes within the mainline Final Fantasy games. The Final Fantasy IV Pixel Remaster is available on Steam and mobile devices. If you want a more modern experience with cutscenes and voice acting, then I recommend the 3D remake, also available on Steam and Nintendo DS. Otherwise, you would have to hunt down a copy for the PlayStation 1, Game Boy Advance, or the PlayStation Portable. What has not been said about Final Fantasy VII? I'm talking about the original, not the remake. In fact, why would I not recommend the remake over the original? And I think the short answer is that it's not a faithful remake. I recommend playing the original Final Fantasy VII first, then playing the 2020 remake so you can see what good and not so good changes were made in said remake. Who would I recommend Final Fantasy VII for? If you are someone who is interested in iconic games, you want to know what made this game so famous, how it influenced its respective genre, or even the gaming industry as a whole. Maybe you're someone who enjoys a bit of sci-fi or steampunk in your fantasy games. Or maybe you need a story that is both deep and meaningful, but also has the goofiness to balance it out. For those of you who do not have a PlayStation 1, Final Fantasy VII is available on Steam, mobile devices, and the Nintendo Switch. This is a recommendation I may get some flack for. Final Fantasy IX. Some will say, but there's too many Easter eggs for past Final Fantasy games. And my response is, yeah, so does Final Fantasy XIV, and that game is highly recommended. Yes, Final Fantasy IX is meant to be a love letter to the previous 8 Final Fantasy games, but 9 has so much more than just Easter eggs and references. I recommend this game for anyone who enjoys games with a unique art style. After all, Final Fantasy IX looks nothing like the games before or even after it. You enjoy stories that will make you cry. And those who want to get invested into the Final Fantasy series. I've recommended Final Fantasy IX to first-timers, and they've become fans of the whole series rather than just a single game. Final Fantasy IX is available on Steam, mobile devices, PlayStation 4, and the Nintendo Switch. I think for most people within my generation, Final Fantasy X was their first Final Fantasy. So right off the bat, I recommend this game for anyone who holds any nostalgia for the PlayStation 2 era. Or perhaps you just need something a bit more modern. I'll admit that I'm struggling to write and say anything else about Final Fantasy X, because what it did, games continue to do today. This is not to say that Final Fantasy X is bad, it just may not seem as special. Voice acting, CG cutscenes, and music with vocals are all things that have already occurred even before Final Fantasy X and are now commonplace in today's video games. Also, this game has a pretty good romance story, if that's your cup of tea. Final Fantasy X is available on the PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, Steam, Nintendo Switch, and the Xbox Game Pass. I know people who actively avoid Final Fantasy XIV, and I think it's the fear of another service with a monthly fee attached to it. With all the monthly services begging for your money and attention, I understand why adding another one would turn people away. But thankfully, Final Fantasy XIV has an extremely generous free trial that includes the base game and the first major expansion. A Realm Reborn and Heaven's Ward together can total to about 100 to 300 hours of content, depending on the pace that you're playing the game. 300 hours of free content is why I believe that Final Fantasy XIV deserves a chance. If you really wanted to, you can purposely lock yourself into the free trial only and never pay a penny. One person actually spent 1,000 hours in the free trial and made a video on it. Link in the description. Final Fantasy XIV is for those who enjoy the current landscape of live service games with active communities and consistent updates. Those who enjoy having a plethora of customization options, and for those who want to try a game for free without the risk of paying. Final Fantasy XIV is available on PC through Steam or through the Final Fantasy XIV website, PlayStation 4, and PlayStation 5. I apologize if a lot of my points in this video are either vague or overly generic, but I did not want to spoil too much and let you have your own experience. If you would like to see an in-depth analysis of any individual Final Fantasy game, then that's something I can do in the future. Otherwise, thank you for watching to the end, and I hope to see you again.